I want to talk today a bit about Bombos versus everything. Now, most recently, I did a video for The Last Call, and in that I gave a tiny bit of history as far as Tokyopop goes, and their original content versus translations that they had been doing up until that point. Now, I also just started reading East Coast Rising, which is another one of those titles. I will get to this as soon as I can, and I think this is going to lead into some other things, specifically with Becky. And I think MBQ is the success story out of this whole era. But I will get there as soon as I can. For now, Bombos vs. Everything, which is written and drawn by Maximo Lorenzo. I don't think we ever met, but he was at the launch of Android.com, which is what this channel is named after. It is a comic-based website. Creators create original characters, and then creators then have competitions to see which one can create a comic based on a set schedule. It's a whole thing. But when that version of the site launched, Maximo was part of it. He created a character named Crazy Bee, whom I still love. A lot of those creators I still follow. So Evan Dom, I hope to do a video on some of his stuff soon. Jim Stocco, Marley, Sheldon. There's a bunch. I would like to talk about all of them someday, but specifically today we're talking about Bombos versus Everything. And much like The Last Call, this is a very high energy book. Oh, what is this doing there? That's weird. So let me just show off. So this is how it starts. It starts off with a guy and a bat fighting these, the book calls them cavemen. They look like kids in masks. Yeah, that's page 1. So they speak this weird language. It gets translated later. Speed lines. They look like children. I believe they're older. So this is Bombos. This is sort of his small town rival, Veng. He's their mentor, really. And then I will separate these words with a space. It might be hard to hear, but the girlfriend. I hesitate to use the word love interest because it's sort of one-sided, but that's getting a little deeper into the story. At the core of the story is fighting with bats. And here it's in his teeth for some reason. But really at the heart of the story is this guy is dissatisfied. He grew up in a small town. He feels like he's destined for something greater. He wants to get to the big city, and there is a competition. It's a fighting competition in order to get there. So he's been training. Again, this is his rival. The two of them have been training in order to win this competition, win a trip to the big city, get out of this town. I want to show you something else as well, because this is going to be a recurring theme, unfortunately. But it ends with a preview for Volume 2, which never came out. And this was published, much like a lot of these books, in 2007. So that sucks. I would have loved to see this story continue. I know there was a fight years back for the creators to get the rights back from Tokyopop to some of these books. I think only one creator, it's been a while since I've looked into it, but at the time I think only one creator was successful in getting the rights back. It's unfortunate. I love Maximo's art. This story has heart, even though it's sort of a fighting style anime at its core. But the art's great, and I'm a huge supporter of creators owning their own work. I wish he still had access to finish the story on his own, even if it weren't through Tokyopop. And even though this story concludes in a way, but it definitely leads to more. There should have been more to this story. So some of this stuff is hard to recommend in the sense that it's an incomplete story. You know, it was meant to be longer, and unfortunately it just never was. But this story in itself is still good. I think you can find it Because it's an older book, it won't be available at retail, but it should be pretty widely available. Last I checked on the secondary market. There's a shot of Veng. Also looks young. I think she looks older, so it's a little bit weird. I don't know. Some of the scenes that they're in, Bombos looks young and she looks old. Some of that, I think, is the height difference as well. But yeah, it's good. I do recommend it. It's just, I know this sort of thing isn't going to be for everyone, and I kind of hate that sentence. It recently came up on the It's Always Sunny podcast. Just saying, it's not for everyone, sort of, kind of puts an asterisk on what you're recommending, but I think there is a demographic similar to myself that is interested in original stories outside of the mainstream. New, unique voices, and that is certainly what this is. And I don't like the way that all of the Tokyopop original content shook out. I wish it had ended differently, but I do applaud the effort. Them trying to put out a bunch of content from new creators, and they still managed to get a bunch of books published. It's just, I wish the rights had reverted back to the creators. Anyway, I mentioned, I think during Huck and Chrononauts, that I sort of do these things in themes. I should be finishing East Coast Rising pretty quickly. I started this last night, and I'm already a decent ways in. I would like to get to more of Becky's stuff. I have a few of hers. I would like to get to MBQ. I also pulled off a Transformers title off the shelf. So yeah, this is a tiny preview for some things that should be coming up soon. This, however, is good. If you can find it, I do recommend it. It's just know that the story was intended to be longer, and it unfortunately doesn't exist.